I think we're now all settled. Thank you very much for your patience and your interest. Welcome again to the July edition of the LGMA monthly webinars towards COP30. You would notice that both for those who are frequent flyers of our webinar, because these are repeated monthly, you may notice both me personally and our presentation today has a new look. We hope you will appreciate that, and any feedbacks are welcome. So, for housekeeping, these webinars are recorded and they are uploaded in our YouTube channel, and you can also access to the presentation later on from the LGMA website. We usually take around 30 minutes or 40 minutes maximum for a presentation or maybe updates, and then we open the floor for inputs and additional contributions or question and answer session. Time to time, depending on the agenda, we have guests. We usually are also welcoming various partners of the LGMA, especially from the working groups and co-leads. But we also invite some guests. You may remember in yesterday's mail to LGMA mailing group, we announced about Dr. Felix Koitsik to join us, especially about his latest paper on the lack of engagement of the global South cities in the climate research. Unfortunately, he has an unexpected last-minute agenda, so he apologizes, he regrets. We, of course, respect, and we'd look forward to have him joining us in future rounds up. Actually, today also, there are a number of important agendas that are also going ahead in the IPCC process, so very likely next month we will have more updates on the IPCC special report on cities. In the afternoon, we are hoping to have Philip Young, COP30 Special Envoy, and we will also hear from Bianca, our colleague, Bianca Cantoni, who is serving as Secretary of the LGMA COP30 Brazil National Coordination Group, so that they will also keep us updated on the discussions in Brazil. They had their last meeting last Friday as like a brief debrief from Bonn and London. And we'll continue. Today, I'm delighted that I'm joined by my colleague Ariel, who will take us through especially the section on the process for turning COP30 vision to COP30 negotiations, together with other partners of the COP30 vision drafting group. We have come up with a proposal and would like to share this with you, and Ariel will take us through that, which will come at the end at like the 30 minutes of this presentation. While she's presenting from the colleagues who have been involved in this process, especially the drafting group of the vision, but also the working groups of LGMA, we would be more than happy to welcome them to provide any updates from their side in that sense. With that, let's now move to our agenda. Regularly, we have an introduction to LGMA, our tools, our mechanics, a brief update from how we have come from COP29 to SP62. We have one slide now about our 100 days to COP30, and then we will go to this discussion on LGMA, turning the LGMA COP30 vision to negotiations, and we also have latest updates on the town hall COPs. And Ariel and I will share that depending on how the agenda goes forward. So who we are, the LGMA, Local Government and Municipal Authorities Constituency, the voice of cities, towns, and regions in the subnationals in its entirety in the UNFCCC process since '95. You see that this is a process where we influence the negotiations, the action agenda by the champions since Paris Agreement, the dialogue with the COP30 presidency, but also are advancing the process through the contribution and collaboration with the Friends of Multi-Level Action, which are the ones who provide inputs to the negotiations. This is a consolidation of our like more than 3 decades of our work in this space. We are shaping, or we are summarizing in 4 phases. The first 3 years with the adoption of the convention, we were acknowledged as LGMA, but the text, the UNFCCC, this was a legacy from Rio, but the text of the UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol did not have a direct recognition to our processes or engagement. Therefore, until 2005, we were relatively out of this process or out of the cycle while we were acknowledged as a constituency. Starting from the entry into force of Kyoto Protocol, when there was a debate on also the next step of Kyoto Protocol in Bali, we kicked off an ambitious local government climate roadmap to ensure recognition, engagement, and empowerment of all levels of governments. 2005 also was the moment where a lot of colleagues, partners, new partners joined into space, and then we were more strengthened with additional processes. Our work, especially, were intensified was intensified after Copenhagen failure. So we upheld the principles of multilateralism even after Copenhagen, and this journey concluded in Paris, where we had achieved the first recognition of importance of all levels of governments in the Paris Agreement. From then onwards, you can see we have been. There's a surge of all these efforts, like exponential growth of inside and outside from our constituency, from the UN side, from Marrakesh Partnership, Talanoa dialogues, especially after recognition in Glasgow with the multi-level action, the urgent need for multi-level action. We had started also to focus on multi-level action and urbanization as the dual processes, the two sides of the same coin, and numerous initiatives from Sharm el-Sheikh, Dubai, and Baku advanced, and especially with the Dubai GST outcomes, paragraph 161, we achieved the parties are urged for multi-level action, and mitigation work program also clarified a lot of new details. These processes are usually we are preparing throughout the year through and sharing our outcomes through these webinars and bulletins. You see the next calendar invites. We recommend you to subscribe to the bulletin as well because it contains most of the links. It's a year-round process, and we have been keeping this over these years, especially this website, citiesandregions.org, has been active since Paris Agreement. We had used another website before. There you can find all the links, what we have been achieving over these years. We bring throughout the year out of our consultations, our positions to the negotiations. This is helpful both at the national level, but also at the COPs for our delegation and leaders. When it comes to COPs, multi-level action urbanization pavilion in the blue zone of the COP30, the negotiations area served as the home for our constituency with numerous partners every year, expanding from national governments, but also the core LGMA partners. And we hope this model will continue further. When we're talking about COP30 Belém, we're talking about the response to the last 2 years, because that's particularly the reference there. The GST outcomes in Dubai and the Baku decisions, especially on finance and mitigation work program, are the ones that are critical for us. So when we're talking about a success of COP30, we have to think about these two outcomes. And of course, while negotiations are proceeding, an important point is about the national action. National action summarized in national development, nationally determined contribution, or in simplified terms, the national climate plans, which is expected to be renewed this year. Especially this year is important because this is the moment where the parties can embrace all the decisions from COP29, especially on mitigation, but also loss and damage, the adaptation and finance, especially, so that now it's a package. And for this, they don't need any additional negotiations. They just have to deliver. So they have to work at home. This slide is coming from our colleagues from UN Habitat. It's the refreshed document, the guide from enhancing urban components. You see where we are as of today in terms of the urban components of NDCs. We have still a lot of way to go forward. It's also, we're not in point zero. There's already some very good basis. But the idea is that all the countries by the end of this year turns all these colors into dark blue, which means a strong urban component. This summary is extracted from our colleagues from C14 GCOM as the support unit of CHAMP, and it's like a summary of what is being now on the table officially. There are 28 NDCs submitted, which is let's say 25% of all nations. So there's still a huge number of parties who have not submitted these documents. Among them, there are around very good examples from CHAMP countries, but also there are countries who have not endorsed CHAMP, both with direct references, but also good signals of how they refer to multi-level action and urban components, including reference to CHAMP as appropriate. This This is an extract from all these. You can see some of them it is presented as an annex. Sometimes it's inside. It's a even in the preamble. There is a strong references. There are some references in numerous paragraphs. So it's a diversity reflects the national conditions. You cannot expect one size fits for all, and that's the beauty and the beast. So that the national work has to be decoupled from what's going on now in the international negotiations. Again, this is the new nature of all this process that has to be bottom up from the national level. Um, COP, the Conference of Parties, annual Conference of Parties, is a cyclic process. It's a handover every year from one presidency to the other. We always try to make sure there is an important transition among those. Here, again, this is the renewed visual representation, and through this opportunity, let me thank my colleague Olga from ICLE Comps to the team who have worked on our presentation template to make it much more neat and tidy and visual appealing. We hope this will help us to move forward. So the COP29 presidency is still in process. So if anything happens, they're still the one who should be going to. They are the ones who would convene parties or convene the bureau and other processes. But obviously, because it's a handover now, many of those the staff leaders are particularly much less active in the process. The champion Nigar and Mukhtar Babaya, the corporate are still, of course, in duty, but others are involved less in this process. We are still in touch with Elmar Mamadov and Shahriar is off the process. COP29 president also introduced this international advisory board where we had Maimuna Sharif from Kuala Lumpur as well. In between, this is the unique moment where this the Troika is available, which means Emirates are still not out of the game. Emirates is United Arab Emirates is still because of their role in the COP30 Troika, COP28, COP29, and COP30 Troika. They are still playing a role in this whole mechanics. Throughout this year, and this is almost now turned into a practice, regular practice, we have meetings in Copenhagen, in Berlin, through Petersburg and Copenhagen dialogues. We are now aware that UNFCCC is prepared to fix that the first climate week is held in the first 6 months, and usually this is for sure it has to be in the global south. It's usually Latin America and Africa. It could be different next year, but the first climate week was in Panama. And then we all end up to 62, the sub-Zarabadi meetings in Bonn. Between now and until Bonn, we will until COP30, we are expecting to have Climate Week, the second Climate Week, and it's officially announced in Ethiopia, and pre-COP, which is under the authority of the presidency. So it will be in Brasilia, and then we'll go to COP30. In the COP30 presidency now in Bonn, which was our biggest achievement, or this was the biggest outcome, that we have met all the staff leaders and representatives from top to bottom. Andre Delago, Anna Toni, Dan Yoshpe, Marion, Bruna, and we also have been introduced to a new colleague in the COP30 presidency over the last couple of days in Bonn, Leonardo Battos, who is leading also our access to the negotiations, especially on just transition and adaptation as well. In COP30 presidents, we have been exposed to now this new concepts of Muturao, the leadership circles, global ethical stocktake, and envoys, 30 envoys. So it's this 30 envoys is more or less similar to the International Advisory Board of the Azerbaijan presidency. Among these 30, three of them are directly related to our work as the LGMA constituency. The first one is Philip Young. He's responsible for urban solutions, and we have enjoyed to meet with him in Bonn, London, and in Brasilia. Marcelo Brito is a voice that could be the representative of the subnational governments from Amazonia. And we have the third special envoy, Jurema Wernick. We haven't met Jurema yet, but she is particularly trying to voice the concerns or positions of the marginalized urban communities, especially in the case of Latin America and in many parts of the world. Urban poor is still an important actor of the society. Therefore, it's so good to have a voice for them. And we look forward to meeting her as quick as possible. Maybe we can hear this from our Brazilian LGMA coordination group colleagues. Maybe they had made some interactions. So throughout the year, we have this three axes. We have the global processes. The blue ones are the UN or UNFCCC, and the green ones are LGMA. If you look at that, June was the most peakest, let's say, throughout the year. This was the most intense month, especially in the UN space with Sevilla Finance Conference and Ocean Conference, and of course the June. We have colleagues who have been there. I'm not sure whether they will be joining us today, but we can come back to this in the discussion part where we could go through them over these after hearing from presidency, after seeing our calendar and making our internal homework with our constituency internal discussions, and seeing now the flow of the negotiations at the beginning of June, we have announced our LGMA COP30 vision, rallying for local to global COP30 and beyond. This is based on three main purposes or three main work streams: the before Belém, in Belém, and beyond Belém. Before Belém, we focus on national advocacy, national mobilization. In Belém, we will focus on the negotiation agendas to make sure that this is reflected in what the topics that will be discussed in Belém. And beyond Belém is we are aware, especially presidency, but also inside the UN, there are big discussions for reform of the process, and that's also important because we also have an important agenda that IPCC's special report will be released in 2027. So if we can set up a strong foundational basis in Belém with the country, Brazil, who is very strong in both multi-level action and urbanization, then we can make a huge progress on the way forward. This website covers our presence at SB62. We have started with a blog. We have uploaded our delegation and an agenda, and we also have captured interesting moments. And at the end, we could also manage to get a 8-minute video about the summary of what has happened. It was not an easy process, but what we see overall from the LGMA perspective, it was the most diverse and effective engagement of the LGMA constituency throughout these June sessions of the Bonn climate talks since its inception in 95. We had also cases, especially in 2014 and 2019, but this was throughout the 2010 onwards, we were using resolutions Congress. But this year, because of our engagement in the process, so good with the support from the UNF Secretariat and the presidency, and the diversity of our leadership from Brasilia to Australia, from Europe to Africa and China. This was a very intense couple of days for us, and we were there from the beginning till the end. We were actively involved in numerous negotiation agenda items, and you can see this full map. Obviously, the first week was very intense. We had we were expecting this because the presidency and the champions presence in Bonn was scheduled for the first week, but that was also triggered by our plans for daring cities. We will see that on that in the next slide as well. But the process did not finish until the last night. There were interesting discussions about the adoption of the agenda, which was delayed. Unfortunately, Andrea Gaudino from Belém, COP30 secretary, who was the LGMA nomination, he was not able to deliver in person. But we have been managed to get involved in several discussions, especially on mitigation, the Rio Conventions, the stocktake, an action agenda. All had subnational leaders from different colors of our diversity of our constituency, including mayors, environment secretaries, councillors, commissioners. That was strong, and also the LGMA experts were also actively involved in numerous sessions. The closing plenary was late on Friday night, and the presidency, the SB chairs asked for closing plenary interventions the night before the conclusions of the negotiation. So we delivered a basic expression of interest, a basic statement in 2 minutes, which was referring that we were happy to welcome the action agenda. We are aware that the pressing issue of the finance, and we said that this is beyond ministers of environment and has to be discussed with Sevilla. And we also said we are ready to move forward for national level engagement, and such as South Africa's endorsement of town hall COPs. The closing. At the end of the closing, we have also seen there had been progress, especially in the just transition, which is particularly important because it is an important priority for Brazilian presidency, and the just transition is more or less making the third moment for Brazil in the global environmental governance. So the first one, 92 Earth Summit, the second one, 2012 Rio Plus 20. In the first one, the introduction of sustainable development concept and the climate land nature axis was announced. In 20 years later, this was merged with the Millennium Development Goals, which is the social and economic aspects of development. And now it's not anymore transitioning away from something or resisting to others, but rather building a new civilization. Just transition means literally building a new civilization, human civilization, which is in harmony with climate and nature and in harmony with within its citizens and constituents at the national and global level. During this SB 62, we had seen the benefit of the process led by ICLE City of Bonn with the support of the German Development Ministry in BMZ. Daring Cities has been evolution of our engagement since 2020. This was building on the Resilient Cities Congress we had every year. But Daring Cities proved to be an important moment for us because we were able to make use of our outside UNFCCC, inside UNFCCC processes at the GIZ plenary, Bonn City Hall, the historic City Hall, but also scheduling the agenda so that we can have our internal discussions, the Champ Roundtable, the Champ dialogues, partner with the Champ endorsers, but also beyond side events and others. So we hope we will count on this experience so that we move further in the years ahead, so that every year Bonn becomes the kitchen of this process, provided that this is the mechanics, because after the UN80, all is possible. There are important discussions about what to expect about a new governance model. There were two important announcements in Bonn and in London during these 2 weeks. The first one is the COP30 Brazil presidency announced its fourth letter, which is focused on action agenda. It was a long-awaited discussion. We had provided inputs informally, and even until the last night, they were continuing to update their vision. So when they announced it through an important side event where we had Commissioner from Tarabe, from Nigeria, representing the subnational space. We have seen now they are built the whole process on the global stocktake outcomes, but also taking into account Marrakesh Partnership, the Global Climate Action Agenda. So it's like a combination of action area and the negotiations. They have defined 6 areas. 5 of them are thematic, and the sixth element is more cross-cutting. And out of this 5 thematic area, the fourth one is entitled as, let me read it, Building Resilience for Cities, Infrastructure and Water. The title originally, or at the first look, the title seems to be very restrictive or limiting because it takes only one part of the picture, which is just the resilience or adaptation. This is usually due to the logic that in the Paris Agreement, the word local and subnational agreement is appearing at the paragraph 7.2 on adaptation, in addition to the preamble, which is all levels of governments are recognized. Because global stocktake is based on Paris Agreement, the paragraph 63E of the global stocktake refers on to cities. But in the global stocktake, we had other decisions like paragraph 161. But more importantly, we also have a huge progress in the mitigation work program and the year after in Baku. So over these weeks and even the last days, until the last days, to the presidency, we were trying to convey the message that they should be taking a much more holistic approach and not limit the urban agenda only to resilience. If you look at now the components of it, there are 5 different components. It's now really encompassing all elements of urban space, urban system. It's focused on multi-level governance. It focuses on sustainable and resilient construction and buildings, resilient urban development, mobility and infrastructure, water management, and solid waste management. So everything that is in this somehow related to local and regional governments is here. And obviously, we are aware these discussions can be held, or this process, depending on where these countries have their governance structures, they can be under the authority of local and subnational governments or regional governments, but to a certain extent. And it's also under the authority of national governments. And in many cases, private sector is also helping to shape this discussion. So it is really a time to we encourage that the term we have been pushing since 2021, multi-level action and urbanization, is becoming much more visible. And there's no other place better than Brazil to speak that. It is 90%, around 90% or 80 plus percent is urbanized. Andre Delago, president, COP president designate, had always said that Brazil is known as a forest country. 80% of area is covered by forests, but it's also at the same time an urban country. It's 85, 80% urbanized, and 87% is the Amazon urban population. So it's strong message saying that Brazil, with the climate federalism, also a new concept embedded in the NDC, is really playing a role model for the global North and South for a debate on all these areas. So we are really excited to work on this agenda, and we have already expressed as LGMA that we welcome this approach. The second big announcement was the week after, but it was in London. But it was still together with COP30 presidency, and this time with Bloomberg Philanthropies, which is the announcement of the Local Leaders Forum in Rio on 3 to 5 of November. Obviously, it's the week before COP30 negotiations in Belém, but there's a clear vision that the outcomes from Rio will feed into the COP30, where LGMA will play a key role, and especially the Cities and Regions Hub, or whatever the name, the dedicated space that we will create with UN Habitat, Minister of Cities, and ICLEI as the LGMA focal point will play a key role, including the fourth Urban and Climate Ministerial as well. So this is now giving us the idea that we are ready for the second half of the year. Obviously, this week we have the high-level political forum, but climate is not that high on the agenda. Therefore, we have seen a calendar of events, and interestingly, we are able to make sure that from Kuala Lumpur, 100 days before the COP starts, we have a nice trajectory. We can come back to this agenda, but you can see that every process can be a moment to feed, to build to the other, so that we can build the process, and our positions can be crystallized, but also it could be communicated every moment and every different audience, from environment ministers to urban meetings, and then we will all come to Brasilia, of course, for the pre-COP, and our last meeting will be in Europe, in the town hall COP of European Committee of the Regions in Brussels, and all the results will feed into the Local Leaders Forum in Rio, followed by COP30 negotiations in Belém. So what do we want to say in all these processes? And here is the handover to Ariel, who will summarize our latest updates on how we will turn our vision to positions. Ariel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eunice, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I'm just going to share my screen here because I don't want to imply that we're saying nothing. In fact, we're saying many things. So let me get this up. All right. Hopefully you can see my screen now. Okay, great. So yes, we are now moving into a critical moment for the constituency where we take our grand vision that we have been kind of workshopping and socializing across all of these meetings into concrete positions for COP30. And we have a great group already working on this, and you can now think of this as your official invitation to engage. I'm going to go through kind of what this looks like and talk about the timeline, because probably that's going to determine some of your all's ability to engage, because it is a short timeline. But yeah, let's start out with first what we're going to be trying to do. So the positions that we are going to take up come in three buckets. We went into this whole discussion with kind of the lead up, the before Belém, so that used to be the first bucket, the in Belém, and then beyond Belém. And that wasn't really about the when the positions would be kind of released, but it was about what the topics were really addressing. And so we've reorganized them slightly here just to give a bit more of an understanding of sort of what we're going to be addressing within this position. And so the first sort of grouping that we can think about are negotiations topics. So these are topics that fall squarely within the language of the UNFCCC and the COP presidency. So these are really, they'll be located kind of in the and familiar places within the processes of COP30, and hopefully can be mapped quite easily so that folks who are participating in the negotiations really can see where these positions that we're taking up fit and what's relevant to them. The second grouping of topics is going to be around enabling conditions. So these might not fall squarely within the negotiations topics, but really talk about ways that our constituency can better serve the implementation of the Paris Agreement, and be better served by both conditions within COPs themselves, within the UNFCCC, and then within the greater UN, kind of acknowledging that there's this massive transition that or transformation that may soon come upon the UN system. And then finally, the last part is now characterized as national mobilization, or a compendium of good practices that really look at how to take multi-level NDCs, particularly implementation, to the next level, knowing that we are going to be hopefully seeing more of those NDCs by September, and then finally by COP30. So those are the three buckets. Now we'll get into the much more kind of specific there we go. Sections. So first off, what we're trying to do here is create some transparency around who's participating in what, so that based on what you're interested in participating in, who to reach out to. The other thing that we want to do is try to schedule at least one kind of office hours or discussion period or a meeting before our deadline, which I'll get into in the next slide, for each of these sections. So if you are interested in participating, we'll be making that schedule of meetings available so that you can either work on things asynchronously, or you can participate in that meeting to be able to contribute to this position. So yes, we have, and I should have color coded these, but basically up through evolving concepts, those are all the negotiations topics. And you can see that most of those have leaders assigned to them, or have had someone raise their hand. We still don't have leading kind of facilitators for the mitigation section or for evolving concepts. Obviously, the evolving concepts is a bit difficult because it is so wide in nature. But our hope for all of these, whether it's in the negotiations topic sections or in the enabling conditions sections, is that we will either find someone who can lead the group, or just someone to kind of facilitate putting together the sections. So this again is an invitation if you want to step up to that kind of larger role. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be writing this alone, but it does mean that you're taking on a bit more of the kind of facilitation responsibilities. So as you're considering that, with these kind of empty spots where we're looking for folks to step up, let's talk a little bit about what the deadlines are, because I think, again, that might influence your ability to come into this process. So we are currently at the 16th of July. We are now in that second bullet point there, making this invitation to you to self-nominate. That will be open until the 23rd of July. And so we want to do that in the master LGMA tracking sheet. I think that's right, Eunice, right? We'll be sending that out to the LGMA kind of internal different lists that we have. So uh, the goal is that we get everyone who's interested either in leading or coming in, so supporting for any of the sections by the 23rd. And that's because our initial draft is going to be due on the 20th of August. So that leaves basically 4 weeks to develop that initial draft. As I said before, we are encouraging all of the section leaders to hold some kind of discussion in that time to help to guide and or steer the direction of the draft. For some sections that may not be possible, but again, we're just trying to push as much transparency and consultation as possible into this period. With really this goal of getting the initial draft by the 20th. That's important because we need some time to bring that all together. The last week of August is what we're targeting for that process. And then we will be re-releasing this for open consultation across the LGMA during Africa Climate Week. That's around the 1st through 10th of September. And then the goal would be to announce this at Climate Week NYC for a final position, announce the final position that is now open for endorsement. So that is the process. So again, just have a thought about what you're interested in coming into, if you do have places that you're interested in, and then again, it'll go out to the wider group for full feedback. And one section I didn't mention here is the high level summary and sort of overall position. You can think of this a bit more as the messaging document, or sort of the thing that's going to bring it all together. I'll be working with my colleagues at C40 on that to bring that forward. Okay, so I'll stop there, Eunice, but happy to take any questions on it now or at the end of the time.
Thank you, Ariel. Both taking the lead on this process, but also with this nice presentation. Let me come back to the final section of our presentation so that we can briefly conclude and then go to the discussion on all the topics. Let me just share one more time my screen. And yeah, so the the logic was the town hall COPs is just a share of update you have heard. It was kicked off in April, but it was part of our vision that we're entering a new era of multi-level climate action. It has to be connected to local communities, national associations, national processes should come in the game, what we have seen in Brazil and we have seen in Germany, in the US. But they should, of course, be primarily focusing on their influencing their NDCs or national plans to do and advocacy to their national governments. But LGMA also has its own channel so that all these messages can be fed into the UNFCCC. So in that sense, we have kicked off this town hall COPs. It was a process that will be putting the climate action at all levels or connecting climate action at all levels. It will be based on three principles: community-led, national relevant, and transformative oriented. And this is in line with the expectation of the Executive Secretary of UNFCCC that this year innovative mechanisms should be introduced. We're very happy. We had the first endorsement from South Africa. A number of you have met these discussions. We also had an important webinar last week on the Daring Cities Virtual Forum on summarizing how we have advanced in Australia and Africa for national relevant processes. We have already had seen 10 cases. If you have looked at it, these are really a diversity. It reflects a diversity of national conditions. Around 50 or more on the way run up to. You may have heard even Europe is now announced to have the European Town Hall COP in Brussels on the 15th of October, really giving us the opportunity that we can have a national debate on multi-level action and collaboration and focusing on urbanization and climate action. We hope to have another a moment for national engagement during the ASEAN, especially the kicking off our 100 days to go to COP30, especially with a linkage to the national level climate and urban ministerials as an input to the COP30 process. So that is an end of our presentation. I would now like to invite all the colleagues, especially those who are in the LGMA working groups, colleagues or participants, to share their feedbacks, their summaries, so that we can also hear from them. If there are any points we are missing, we can also address this. I already see in the chat box Vanessa Power is also expressing her readiness to work with it. As you heard from Ariel, after this webinars are over, both today and in the afternoon, we will update the LGMA tracking sheet, and we will invite all of you to enter your nominations to this sheet so that then we can go through that and confirm who will be involved in which processes. Um, Good. Ariel also shared the Town Hall COP endorsing page so that those who are interested, like Committee of the Regions, National League of Cities, SALGA, that you can also join this so that you can either promote or actively provide an active support to this process. There is a feedback from Vanessa. Vanessa, do you want to intervene because you have shared a couple of feedbacks? We can, as Kata mentioned, she can turn your mic and video on and you can feedback. There was a question from announcing this ahead of Climate
Sure,
Week New York
currently.
City. Vanessa, yeah, good.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on the train, so not sure if this is
Okay.
probably the best connection. I'm happy just to type it in the chat if that's okay.
Yeah, I can come in
Okay.
for Vanessa
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Vanessa was suggesting that that it might be better to target. So Vanessa's from Under Two, a great colleague on the comms side, supporting our work through communications. And she was suggesting that it might be best to target ahead of Climate Week NYC for the announcement, or sorry, ahead of the 18th. Of September, because there's going to be so many announcements, then likely the EU, NDC, and a few other ones. So she's just recommending that we kind of precede all of those announcements a bit. And I think it's a great idea. And I think we'd actually anticipated that in the original formulation of our schedule. So happy to take that great suggestion. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thanks, Ariel. And through this opportunity, I'm just sharing the slide on the 100 days to COP30, starting from ASEAN Urban Week, 12th of August, and then down until the European Town Hall COP in Brussels on 15th of October, and then all the results feeding into the COP30 Local Leaders Forum in Rio, and then to COP30 negotiations in Belém. And let's remember, in Belém, we will have two moments. The first one is the COP30 Leaders Summit, which is the heads of state gathering before the 2 weeks of COP30 negotiation. That was one of the innovations that the Brazilian president has introduced. And the COP30 will start on the 10th of November. So this obviously brings a challenge of logistics. For example, a very straightforward question. If we're talking about the leaders forum in Rio on the 3rd and 5th of November, if we talk about the leaders summit on the 6th and 7th, and the 10th of November, practically those participants beyond Brazilians will have to be out of their home for around 12 days, which is almost impossible. So we have to map which LGMA leaders are attending to which, and they provided that they all feel that they are part of the same group family, so that logistically they may be in different time zones in different locations, but they share the same message, they share the same spirit, they share the same passion and vision. That should be the mechanics we have to build on. Amelia has an update into the chat box. Amelia, would you like to share yourself? Announcement of the multi-level action and champ coordination working group to be held on the 14th of August, next working group. I assume it was in the list, Ariel, isn't it? So
Yes.
Yeah.
announcement on that. Amalia, yeah, please come
Yes.
in.
Hi. Thank you. Sorry, it was just a very quick comment to just say that we'd held the first LGMA working group on multi-level action and champ, I think back in May. So if you're on this call and you joined that working group, you'll be automatically added to the calendar hold. But please do reach out to myself or Toby Walker from Under Two if you'd like to be added to that one. But thank you so much, Ariel and Eunice, for this. It's a really comprehensive process and great to know how to get involved in the different groups.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Amelia.
Amalia, for all your work. Also,
And
this is
maybe I
really
could
a
just
great job
add
as well. Yeah.
to build on what Amelia was saying, because we do have the other meeting that's scheduled so far is for the climate finance group. So we will be sharing both the Zoom link for both meetings, both the multi-level governance and the finance meetings in the groups. And as those get scheduled, we'll also be sharing them out. So again, as long as you're connected to at least one of the various LGMA channels, you'll get a notification of those. There were 2 points, Eunice, I thought might be useful since we have a few minutes here. Maybe if you can preview a little bit what you think Philip Yang will be talking about in the afternoon, since folks may not be able to join. I think that would be useful. And then I'm also going to share into the chat the article that that Eunice was referring to about the lack of Global South representation in research, especially in the context of the special report on cities and climate change that Dr. Kreutzberg was going to share about today, and hopefully we'll get updates on at a later date.
Thank you for the reminder, Ariel. This is an opportunity that we want to seize. As you have heard, the COP30 presidencies have gathered international advisory boards time to time. It started, I think, with UK on the way to Glasgow, and after that, every presidency have continued some sort of their own boards. In the case of COP30 presidency, they announced their envoys, special envoys, and Philip Young is announced or presented as the Urban Solutions Envoy. We met him in just 2 or 3 days before the meetings in Bonn. He was with us in Bonn. He continued later to London Climate Action Week. His role is directly reporting to André Delago, the COP30 president designate. So he is mandated to provide ideas, insights, and connect to the constituency at the times when presidency cannot reach out. All the topics, obviously, he will receive, and Andre Delago will receive these. They are seeing these envoys as their nodes. And Philip has a huge background on urbanism and also as well as diplomacy. So I think he's now much more familiar of our work, especially with the discussions in Bonn. He joined the LGMA Brazil coordination call on Friday last week. So we hope to have him, first of all, and he also released a couple of articles as like the triggering what he would like to see as a legacy from COP30. Obviously, he will continue and develop this in consultations. So we want to take this opportunity from him to hear his perspectives and how we can align our work. So he will be providing like a 5 minutes of intervention, according to what we have been discussing so far. Good. There are emails that are shared. Once again, don't worry if you have missed sharing your information, and it's also not limited to those who are in this call. So LGMA tracking sheet is open to the access of all LGMA mail group participants. We have almost all our partners there, and so that you can enter your nominations there in the tracking sheet, and then we will be giving 1 week for this so that you can consult internally. You can go back to your colleagues and your members. So this is not the last opportunity, but just in the contrary, it's the first opportunity to come back. I'm just looking at the participants of this call. Shall we think about bringing any colleagues to the front to discuss if there were anything that we missed on here. I see Ingrid here, Ingrid Kortze from ICLE Cities Biodiversity Center. Ingrid, you have seen it internal ICLE communications. We expect you to play a huge role in this section on evolving concepts on nature, land, especially in your work in the biodiversity space. So we'll get back to that. So I just wanted to address you here. Jaume is here from ICLE's finance group. He was not in Sevilla, but he was supporting Natalia and others. If any one of you wants to share any updates on the Sevilla conference, feel free to come on that. I see Tim, who is also following the Ocean Conference. I see Elsa from UNEP, who is also leading the Global ABC, the Global Alliance for Building and Construction, who is also leading the thematic areas, but also UNEP in its entirety is leading, of course, UN Environmental Assembly, which will happen after COP30. That is the unique role that any UNEA will play, and we will have a Cities and Regions Summit on the 5th of December. Of course, this will be the last global meeting of the year. I see a hand raised by Frederick Odiambo Niatado, Avur Niatada. Sorry for my pronunciation, Frederick. I haven't met probably with you before, but please, if you can introduce yourself first and then provide your inputs. And then I see Jome from ICLE Finance Team, Innovative Finance Team. Frederick, do you want to intervene? Your mic is currently now muted. Frederick, if you wish, you can also type in the chat box if you have a problem with your microphone.
Yeah, let's move on to Jamba for now, maybe.
Yeah, Jama, let's proceed.
Thank you, Yunus. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for another excellent presentation, very comprehensive information from your end, and also looking sharp with the new look. This is really, really nice. And well, just want to give perhaps my 2 cents from our team, since we participated with the side event in the International Conference on Financing for Development, and our head of finance, Natalia Salazar, was there present emceeing the side event, which we hosted alongside key partners, including GIZ, FMDV, GCOM, the GAP Fund, CCFLA, CFF, and COMSA. So it really was a great side event in which we talked about how partnerships between city networks and project preparation facilities and development banks are bridging the gap between climate planning and investment. We also shared concrete examples from Sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America on investment-ready, high-impact projects, and also unveiled a publication on empowering cities and financing climate-resilient urban futures that was developed with GCOM and GAP Fund. Overall, it was a really engaging event, and the space was very good, also for subnationals and welcoming. So very excited to share more about this also when we can gather more inputs from Natalia.
Excellent. On the chat box, Frederick said that he cannot intervene because of the internet connection in his area. We'll follow up. Happy Frederick, you can send your feedbacks to us, lgma@icle.org, so that we can follow up. There was a message from Pandora, RRI. That's great. Pandora, especially, she's focusing on the informal settlements. Pandora, you may have noticed that we have informality as part of this evolving concept. And we know high-level champion process is also evolving on an informality led by GCOM and Slum Developers International. And that's exactly the discussion we want to bring in. So definitely we can connect you together. So your inputs are more than welcome into that discussions as well. Any additional topics that we should address? We can always, of course, give back your 2 or 3 minutes so that you can enjoy your times. We are waiting for the afternoon session. Those who are in a position to do, you can always welcome to join. You're always welcome to join if your time zone enables. We, as I said, particularly here from Philippines and Brazil, especially Brazil is important because one of the things that we have to be aware at the moment on the COP30, there are big question marks, unfortunately, due to logistics. You may have heard it formally or informally, publicly or behind the doors. But it is a reality that accommodation in Belém is still not sorted out in the most appropriate way. When we say most appropriate, it is both the quality of hotels that can accommodate this profile of a COP30 participant, which is in many cases high level. Second is the accommodation affordability. So once again, Belém has been hosting decades or even centuries, like 1 million people in that city because of a Christian world's holy day. they are talking about 1.5 million people visitors. But obviously, those visitors are different than a participant of 50,000 to a COP. Their needs and their engagement in the city is different. Therefore, Belém for the first time is hosting a COP or event like that. In it's every city, it's a unique challenge. As of today, accommodation portal of COP30 president is not announced yet. So we don't know the exact modalities. There are ships, there are cruise ships, there are Airbnbs, there are even turning the hostels or schools into dormitories to accommodation spaces. And all of will have a wide diversity of price tags. However, most of them are going need some additional investment very likely, and therefore prices are high. Brazilian presidency has received so many critics, most of them constructive, especially from parties, especially from national governments. So it's not an issue of NGOs creating noise. No, even delegations are not comfortable yet. And in some media newsletters, there are even proposals to the Brazilian presidency to consider changing of the venue from Belém to another city in Brazil or another country. This has not happened for the first time. You remember in Chile, we were all planning to go to Santiago in 3 weeks' time. We have all changed our flights to Madrid because there was an unsuitable condition in the country. So these kind of things can happen in the climate process. But obviously, Brazil and President Lula has a special reason to choose Belém as the host of a COP, which is a transformative COP to address the needs of the urban communities and the needs of the of our Amazonian communities and the need to live in nature in harmony. So any step back from this vision, of course, will come with its political costs. So it's not an easy decision, and we understand and we appreciate the Brazilian presidency to put this such a strong message, but we are all aware at the end of the day, we're talking about very concrete logistical challenges. So we're crossing our fingers. We are hoping the best. And along these lines, in our action agenda discussion, we also are hearing that after Bonn, Brazilian presidency is still going through some consultations. One of the biggest topic is that the Brazilian presidency wanted to turn this action agenda, which was originally a thematic days at the COPs, instead of a day into a 12 days of engagement through pavilions or the action zones. And this also shapes the discussion about pavilions. We as ICLE and UNHCR Ministry of Cities are still advancing in our preparations for a commercial space and many other pavilion space hosts as well. We will do our best when the presidency announced that there is the smooth synergy, but we don't know whether this is still on the table or there's another vision for that. So there are a lot of question marks, but we count on, we have lended our full support to Brazilian presidency. They had to deliver, and we need them to deliver, and they need us to deliver as well. So we also have to help the Brazilian presidency. So what we have seen here, of course, is subject to some fine tunings when these kind of details are announced in the coming days and weeks. That's why it will be a hot summer, hot in every sense for the northern space in terms of climate, but hot politically across the north and south, so that wherever you are, you will be facing. And it's one thing you should also be aware. On the 5th of August, the United States will announce their paper on the US engagement in international organizations, including the United Nations. And this can turn into a bombshell, but luckily, the UN Secretary General and his team is working already for a UN80 initiative in terms of the reform packages. So hopefully, this announcement will not be destructive, but because UN has already been working on a reform for a long time, so that they use this as an opportunity. So, and these all will be discussed in September and onwards, and of course it shapes the debate in Brazil as well. With all these, we're 1 minute over. Sorry, we couldn't get back to your time. If you have already left, that's also not, it's okay. Thank you very much, Ariel, all the colleagues who have provided their inputs, Kata for facilitating our engagement in this discussion, and we'll share the recording and the messages, the presentation shortly afterwards this week. Have a nice day and have a nice time. Bye bye.